Have you ever been listening to a creepy ghost story or haunting history, and you're like, damn, this is so enjoyable, but I wish my friends were here so we could experience it together? That's us, Gina and Catherine, and we'll bring the snacks when you join us on I Scream, You Scream, the podcast where we serve up chilling stories with a side of our favorite ice cream.
Every month, we pick a new flavor of ice cream and a new topic to go along with it. Werewolves, poison, cemeteries, you name it. From deep dives into stories we all thought we knew to your real-world experiences, at this ice cream party, we always get to the bottom of the bowl.
Cozy up with us every Tuesday for your weekly scoop of the most chilling histories, mysteries, and paranormal perplexities. Until then, keep it cool.
And keep it creepy with I Scream, You Scream wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell you scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse wherever you stream podcasts. Just be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. An important note, sources for this episode can be found in the show notes. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. Growing up, I heard scary stories of all kinds. Ghosts, goblins, boogeymen, aliens, and more. And while each of them freaked me out and had me sleeping with the covers pulled tightly over my head, there was one story that, even to this day, sends a shiver up my back. Bloody Mary. Now, before you give me a hard time about Bloody Mary being not scary or an entry-level scary game, it's important to know that it touches on a major fear of mine. Reflections in mirrors in dark spaces. Listen, the brain is weird enough as it is when it comes to interpreting facial features. We'll talk about this a bit later. So the possibility of seeing the ghost or demon of Bloody Mary is nightmare fuel. But my anxiety about dark mirror reflections aside, I was interested to know the backstory to Bloody Mary. Where and when did it start? Is there a dark or twisted or haunted story connected to the scary game? And is the urban legend rooted in something far more real? So naturally, I set out to read and research and hopefully find a few answers. And a quick heads up, this entire month, we're exploring the scariest urban legends from around the world. But first, we're going to start with arguably the most widely known. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, we're going to explore the infamous Bloody Mary. Is the story nothing more than a sleepover game and urban legend? Or is real life far darker and scarier than fiction? I'll share the story. You decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. The rules are pretty simple. Stand alone in a pitch-black room, usually a bathroom, facing a mirror. You may choose to light a candle, though it's not required. Then, once you've mustered up the courage, say Bloody Mary 3 times and look closely. What or who do you see? According to most retellings of the legend, you're supposed to see a woman appear in the reflection, standing behind you. In some versions, she has a mutilated or bloody face, hollow eyes, or empty eye sockets. Sometimes she is screaming, and in others, she will attempt to pull you through the mirror. But in all cases, she is the vengeful spirit of a woman who at some point was wronged to the point of death. In its simplest sense, Bloody Mary is a summoning ritual. though who she is supposed to be depends on who you ask. And in fact, in the earliest versions of the legend, she may have been a he. According to one article, quote, historically, the divination ritual encouraged young women to walk up a flight of stairs backwards, holding a candle and a hand mirror, in a darkened house. As they gazed into the mirror, they were supposed to glimpse a view of their future husband's face. There was, however, a chance that they would see a skull or the face of the Grim Reaper instead, indicating that they were going to die before they would have a chance to marry. End quote. There are several factors which make Bloody Mary so scary: darkness, a mirror, and the human face. Nyctophobia, or an intense and irrational fear of the dark, is more common than we likely realize. Various articles claimed upwards of 50% of children and up to 12% of adults have experienced nyctophobia at some point in their lives. On a less intense scale, upwards of 33% of the population has experienced a general fear of the dark. And here's something interesting. Nyctophobia isn't just fear of the dark, but also a fear of what might be hiding in the dark. For those of us who sleep with our covers pulled up to our heads, or refuse to let our bare foot or arm hang over the edge of the bed, or who have to sleep with some form of light in the room, it's easy to understand why. We simply don't know what is lingering in the dark corners of the bedroom, standing behind the closet door, or hiding under the bed. Isoptrophobia, or an excessive and irrational fear of mirrors, affects far less people than nyctophobia. But despite the lower numbers, the intensity of the phobia itself cannot be understated. According to the Cleveland Clinic, individuals struggling with isoptrophobia will go out of their way not only to avoid mirrors, but also to remove them from their home. They'll avoid purchasing items like makeup kits, and in the most extreme cases, will refuse to go out in public to avoid encountering a mirror. And let's be honest, even for those of us who don't struggle with isoptrophobia, staring into a mirror in a pitch-black room is unsettling at best, and horrifying at worst. In some cultures, mirrors were viewed as objects to be wary of, as they were believed to trap souls, and along with other reflective surfaces, could be a gateway between the physical and spiritual worlds. And perhaps most interesting of all, the Bloody Mary ritual forces us to look at our own reflection, which can legitimately be terrifying because of something called the Troxler effect, which is defined as, quote, a trick of perception that describes what happens if you fix your gaze upon a single point in the visual field, end quote. A single point, like your reflection in the mirror. And it doesn't take long for the Troxler effect to start, sometimes within 10 seconds or less. A Psychology Today article offers an interesting commentary on the Troxler effect and Bloody Mary. Quote, various Halloween-related folklore and games such as Bloody Mary have given us insights into the frightening potential of mirrors. But an article published in Perceptions in 2010 has lent some actual empirical and scientific credence to these ghoulish superstitions. In the study conducted by Dr. Caputo of the University of Urbino, participants were asked to stare into a mirror in dim lighting for 10 minutes. Results demonstrated that 66% of participants experienced huge deformations of their own face, 28% saw an unknown person, and 48% saw fantastical and monstrous beings. End quote. If you're wanting to test the Troxler effect without the risk of playing Bloody Mary, there are two simple ways for you to do that right now. First, go online and find a Troxler effect image, usually a blue circle with a pink or red cross in the middle. Stare at it for up to 30 seconds and notice what happens to the blue circle. Or, if you're up for a creepier version, and you're not afraid of mirrors or reflections, you can stand in a dimly lit room staring into the mirror. Find a fixed point on your face, the tip of your nose, the middle of your forehead, and without moving your eyes, focus solely on that spot. Your face won't disappear, but you may notice something scary start to take the place of your face. Now, while you might be tempted to dismiss Bloody Mary as nothing more than your mind playing tricks on you, it's important to remember the Troxler effect is a real phenomenon, even if it's simply perception rather than reality. Your brain convinces your eyes that what you're seeing is just a distortion of what's really there, not that something suddenly appears out of nowhere. All of that sounds neat and tidy, except what are we to do with scary stories or strange entities appearing behind our reflection? As in, your brain isn't distorting your face, but rather seeing someone else entirely. And what do we do with the folklore behind the game, which suggests that Bloody Mary may have been a real historical person? There are some who believe the legend connects to Mary I of England, the infamous queen who executed hundreds of Protestants in the 16th century. In her case, the Bloody Mary moniker was well earned, after she ordered the public hanging and burning of religious opponents. In a far darker twist, though less well known, one variation claims Bloody Mary is the spirit of a murdered child seeking revenge, not only against her killer, but also the people who fail to protect her. It is believed that after appearing, she steals the eyes of the person who summoned her, and for the unluckiest, pulls them into the mirror where they're never seen again. My favorite variation of the story involves a witch who lived in the woods close to a small village. According to the legend, children began disappearing mysteriously, and despite the villagers' best efforts, they remained unfound. Inevitably, they accused the witch and found her allegedly performing a ritual on the night of the full moon. The villagers offered no mercy and violently attacked her. With her dying breath, she cursed the townspeople and their children, and it was said that within a short time, the remaining children disappeared or died, crops failed, livestock got sick and perished, and strange figures appeared in the mirrors and reflective surfaces around the village. Of course, the story of Bloody Mary is just a story, right? Science seems to explain the scary appearances as the brain processing stimuli in a certain way. The folklore itself is unverified, and it has changed, and morphed over time. It seems like an open and shut case. Maybe not. Because as you can imagine, there are no shortage of scary Bloody Mary encounters, and I'll share 3 of them with you right after this quick ad break. Story 1. Back in elementary school, I walked into the 3rd grade bathroom. Each grade level had a separate wing and bathroom, and saw a group of girls checking in all the stalls and talking excitedly. I asked what they were doing. They said they were about to play Bloody Mary. Having recently heard about this game, and out of curiosity, I asked if I could stay and watch. They said yes. They closed the door, turned off the lights, and chanted the name 7 times while turning around facing the row of mirrors. We turned to look towards the sound of the stall door in the furthest back corner, shaking, banging, and moving in an abnormal, impossible manner. Not opening and closing as a bathroom stall door should. It was rapidly moving back and forth from top to bottom. Through the side slat of the door, I saw a female with dark hair and a long, dark burgundy dress. My knees wobbled like jello. It actually felt like time slowed down, and we were all frozen to our spots for what felt like an eternity. We were entranced as we watched this terrifying scene, until someone screamed and time returned to us. We all ran screaming outside the bathroom, and then stopped to catch our breath. And within a few seconds, we started talking about what we had just seen. A few students who were passing by stopped to listen, and there was a mixture of disbelief and fear. A nearby teacher had to calm us. She said this was nonsense, and that this was why it was discouraged to even play the game. She insisted we all go back inside the bathroom and then investigate so she could prove there was nothing there. A few refused, and some agreed. Those of us who agreed, the initial group plus a few newcomers, cautiously went back in. The teacher started opening all of the bathroom stalls. All of them were empty. There was no one in any of them. She said either another student must have been part of it and it was all a setup, or they were in the stall overhearing the plan and intentionally scared us, and ran out after we all did. We had to tell her that no one was in any of the stalls aside from the group, that we checked beforehand. We told her we ran outside and stopped right in front of the entrance of the door, so it was impossible that anyone could have left without us seeing them at all. She said no one was allowed to use that bathroom the rest of the day without a staff member present, and that anyone caught playing the game again, even heard mentioning the name Bloody Mary, was going to be in big trouble. It was banned throughout the entire school. The door and especially the burgundy dress are the scenes I keep remembering. And as I've gotten older, I recall that it was reminiscent of something worn in earlier centuries. Story 2. As a young child, I was basically the definition of chicken shit. I used to sleep with my lights on or fall asleep to the sound of a movie blasting out of my television. I guess all of that fear drained out of me during those years, because at this point, I'm not exactly a person you would call a coward, but I do have my moments. When I was 7 or 8, I started going to my elementary school summer recreation program. There, I met some of the best people that I know. I met a girl there, we will call her Rebecca, who to this day is still my best friend. We all sat in a small corner of the large gymnasium while she told us about Bloody Mary, the lady in the mirror. She told us the basic story about Bloody Mary, who was a woman who had lost her child, and if you chant her name while standing in front of a mirror in a dark room, she will appear. After Rebecca telling us the initial story, I continued to hear new stories about Bloody Mary from different people throughout that summer. Variations, backstories, and anything to make the story more scary. Being the young, naive child that I was, I believed it. All of it. Some nights, long after midnight, I would lay awake in my pitch-black bedroom, contemplating what I would do if Bloody Mary just happened to slip out of the mirror and into my room. One night, I went to bed as usual and tried to sleep, as it was the night before my 9th birthday. I kissed my mom and dad goodnight, and proceeded to go into my bedroom and fall asleep with my lights on like always. I slowly fell asleep. But then I woke up. The room was pitch black, and Mom probably turned the light off or something. And I looked at the illuminated LED alarm clock on my nightstand. 11:59 p.m. Great. I have to wait until 12:10 to go to the bathroom. Even if I did go to the bathroom, I would go in terrified and do my best to avoid looking into the mirror. I sat there, alone in the dark with a full bladder. You know what? This is ridiculous. Tiffany, you're 9 years old now, and you're still acting like a 2-year-old. Bloody Mary isn't real. I wanted to get over my fear. I really did. Thinking that if I went into the bathroom and did the ritual, nothing would happen, and I wouldn't be afraid anymore. So I grabbed a large candle from my parents' bedroom, tiptoeing quietly so I wouldn't wake them. I crept down to the living room and grabbed the lighter from the kitchen. I lit the candle, burning myself on my first try, and walked into the bathroom. I set the candle next to the sink and stared into my lit reflection. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Nothing happened. I was relieved. I quickly blew out the candle and slipped back into my bed, smiling. I lay there, staring into the clock. I closed my eyes, but then I realized it was nearly 90 degrees outside in the summer, and my bedroom was cold. I was afraid to open my eyes, but I did anyway. And in the doorway was a dark figure of a lady. Looking at her made my insides hurt. I wanted to scream, but I was also afraid of waking up my parents. I simply closed my eyes and tried to imagine puppies, flowers, and the celebrations that would take place in the afternoon. I finally drifted asleep, with the feeling that Bloody Mary was still watching me. Later that morning I woke up, and the sunshine from outside blinded my eyes. I looked in the doorway. There was nothing. I went in the bathroom and dared to look in the mirror, and there was a cut next to my eyebrow. I changed into my dress for the day, noticing several small scratches on my stomach. I did my best to ignore them. After that day, I tried not to think about that night. I never told my friends about what happened, and that everything that she had said was real. At this point, I'm not afraid of the dark. I play idiotic games with friends like the Three Kings or the Midnight Game, but not Bloody Mary. Never Bloody Mary. Story 3. I've always been into the paranormal and creepy things. My cousin had told me stories about her Bloody Mary experience, and once I was old enough to have the balls to try it, I definitely did. The first couple of times nothing ever happened, and me and my friend were always super disappointed. But one night, instead of just saying Bloody Mary 3 times, we thought maybe if we said I believe in Bloody Mary, it would give whatever it is more energy to show itself. And boy, were we right. It was me and my 2 best friends at the time, and I had moved into the house about 3 years prior. My mom's bathroom at the time had the bathtub on the wall across from the door. The door swings into the bathroom opening on the right. On the left is the vanity and sink, which take up the majority of the left wall, with a full mirror extending the full length of the vanity, so we could all easily stand in the bathroom and stare in the mirror. We turned the lights out and stood in the dark and repeated the phrase, I believe in Bloody Mary, and we definitely said it more than 3 times. Now, it's pitch black in the bathroom, so our eyes were slowly adjusting to the dark. But as I was standing there, right in the middle, partly because my 2 best friends didn't know each other, and partly because it was my house, so I got to pick where I was. Listen, I definitely wasn't scared or anything. That's where I ended up. At first, I thought my friend on my right was screwing with me when I heard the curtain rustle, because she had a tendency of doing it. However, when I called her bluff, she was panicking herself, because she was the one closest to it. We both looked over and saw the curtain moving as if someone had just brushed past it. At that point, we were both on edge, but we definitely weren't expecting for our hands, which we were holding, to get touched as if someone else was trying to hold our hands as well. And that's when we noticed my reflection was no longer my reflection. Now you may be asking how I know that in the dark, and to that question I have a very, very easy answer. I'm super short, like just slightly taller than a legal midget. I've been the same height since 5th grade, so when the figure in the mirror grew taller than me, and the hair and weight changed drastically, we decided to call it and turn the light back on. Looking back now, it seems kinda meh, given the other things I've experienced. But when you're in 6th or 7th grade, and only had minor encounters with the paranormal, well, it was definitely enough for me to stop going to the bathroom alone for a while. I'll end with a confession. I've never had the nerve to play Bloody Mary. Remember, I'm not a huge fan of seeing reflections in dark spaces. And for me, just as scary is the slight possibility that playing it will let something really bad into my world. So while I love the spooky and supernatural, I much prefer to keep the ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and Bloody Mary at a safe distance where I can talk about them without meddling. As we close this episode of the Red Treehouse, we're left with this lingering question. Is Bloody Mary real? Or is she nothing more than a scary urban legend? I've shared the story. Now you decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.